The Lincoln Wishlist sales event is happening now. Here's what's on everyone's wish list. Enjoying holiday jingles with brilliant 3D audio that surrounds you? Check. Watching snow flurries through the panoramic Vista roof? Check. Packing up presents with the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Check. Everything you want. All standard on the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com for exceptional offers on 2025 Lincoln vehicles today.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify, spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey, everybody. It's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How are you this evening, Mike?
I'm very excited. This is an episode that, I say this a lot, but another player who, when we started the show, I thought was going to be picked pretty quickly because I think he's got quite the story, not just his Islander tenure. Of course, there's a tragic ending, and then there's also his career prior to coming to the Islanders as well, and also just like the style of player he was. It was pretty unique, and I think pretty unique to the era he played in. And as we've said a couple times, we don't touch on this season all that often because it's kind of sandwiched between a very, very well remembered exciting season, and then of course the kind of beginning of a really annoying rebuild. But it's one that had some fond and very funky memories, and I'm really excited to dig into those and talk about this player, a player who I couldn't get enough of during his time on the island.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too, that this was a season we hadn't really touched upon that much. We've only really talked about maybe one or two other players from this team, so I'm excited to get into that. But yeah, this is a player who I was a fan of, you were a fan of, I think a lot of people at the time were a fan of, and our guest was definitely a fan of, and I can't wait to dive into his entire career and get to the heart of why we were fans of this player. But first, our great guest is back. You know him from his previous appearance on Weird Islanders, the podcast. He also is the owner still of one of Mike and I's favorite spots on the entire internet, one of the great YouTube channels of all time for Islanders fans. He is our pal, Sab. Sab, how are you this evening?
Doing great, gentlemen. Thanks for having me back.
Have you seen an uptick in traffic to your site since the Islanders drafted Matthew Schaefer first overall, made a bunch of cool signings in the offseason? Heck, they're doing podcasts now. They're having web series and stuff. It's a good time to be an Islanders fan. Has that been reflected in the traffic to your great videos?
Well, I think since Lou left, who needs my channel anymore? If you,
I do.
I did see a little bit of uptick, and I was able to, in this whole transition of the last, regime to this one, there were a few pieces that never made it to YouTube, but they were pretty neat. So then I would add them on my channel. I obviously give everybody else the opportunity to. But yeah, with what seems to be a boosted social media presence, I don't think I'll be updating much stuff on my channel. I think they're going to be going full blown on every available platform out there. But I did get to see a few people add a few more comments and stuff on some of the older games, and they're just getting excited, and they would probably go to the period that we're going into, since you had a lot of excitement, you had a lot of free agent signings in this upcoming season that we're going to talk about. So, I a little bit of uptick, but yeah, I won't be busy for a while. I know that.
Well, that's good too. It gives you more time to watch the Islanders. But yeah, we are going to talk about a season here that we haven't really discussed all that much. And again, a player who was integral to this season and made an impression just with, unfortunately, one season with the Islanders. And we'll get into all how he came here, how he left, and all that stuff. But we will just get right to him. Sab, will you please reveal the subject of tonight's episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast?
So tonight's episode is dedicated to an Islander for one season signing as a free agent in 2007, Mr. Josef Vašíček.
Yes, Josef Vašíček came over to the Islanders in the 2007-2008 season. It was his one season with the team and final in the NHL. We want to dedicate the time and give it the respect it deserves, so we want to talk about this right now. On September 7th, 2011, a plane carrying the players of the Yaroslavl Lokomotiv KHL team crashed soon after takeoff. Among the 44 people aboard who died were Josef Vašíček and other NHLers, including Pavel Demitra, Karol Vachunik, Carlos Skrastinch, Ruslan Saleh, Igor Korolev, former Islanders defenseman Alexander Karpatsev, and former Islanders assistant coach Brad McCrimmon. This was an unspeakable tragedy then and now. It's still very hard to wrap your head around it. I've been researching it, and it's still unbelievable to read about what happened there. It was a very confusing and sad time. The KHL was kind of new, and all of a sudden, this tragedy happens and takes the lives of 44 people, some of which we felt we knew because they were NHL players.
What I found was, even though it was still in its infancy, the league itself was kind of like seen as just like a rival place, a rival league where, players either go back to their homeland to play, or they can no longer play in NHL, so they go to the KHL. So there wasn't really no face to it. There really was no personality to it until this incident happened. And then this is when you realize, you mentioned the names, like Pavel Demitra and all that. You're like, oh my gosh, there was no real connection from North American pro hockey fans, I think, other than if they knew somebody who, had left to go there. And, it just came out of nowhere, obviously, being an airline accident. And it was just so shocking. And it grounded the entire, community for days. If it would have happened during the season, I definitely think there would have been like a pause for like 2-3 days for even NHL games because of what happened. But because I guess it happened, I guess in like a preliminary type or a preseason type of activity, we got to recover before the season actually started. It was incredible.
Yeah, Mike, these names and this tragedy probably still come up to you very often, right? I mean, I can't imagine you don't think about it when you think about these players.
Yeah, we're recording this like right around the anniversary of the crash, and a couple days ago was reading about it again, and I remember where I was. I was in so that was right in the beginning of that might have been my like first day of classes, my senior year of college, and I was sitting in a class with one of my roommates, my buddy Emmett, whose brother-in-law, as I've said numerous times on this podcast, was Chris Drury. And so him and I were sitting in the back of the class, and the news was kind of trickling in the way news trickled in back then. Very different. Twitter was around and stuff like that, but it was much different. Yeah, I remember seeing the name and knowing that Vašíček was on that team, just because you kind of keep tabs on I do, especially players like that. And then it sounds funny to say, but there were two names that really stuck out to me. I was like, couldn't believe they were gone, because as NHL players, they were known as just absolute warriors. And they're both defensemen, and that's Ruslan Saleh and Carlos Skrastinch, because I think Skrastinch had like the longest Ironman streak going for a while there, and then Ruslan Saleh was obviously just like tough as nails and was known as like that stay-at-home defensive defenseman in that era who would just absolutely maul you.
And an Olympic hero as well for Latvia.
For that. Yeah. So, it was like, I just remember, seeing the names, and it's, as you said before, it's still hard to kind of wrap your head around that those guys just were gone. And obviously even like someone like Karpatsev, who his Islander career was pretty unextraordinary, I guess you'd say. Like just being like, holy hell, like it's just really, really quite sad. Obviously, and unspeakable, I guess is the right word. And yeah, in a way, like every time it comes up, it's almost as if your hockey fans, like the broadcaster, whoever's talking about it at that time, is still almost surprised that it happened.
Right.
And as Sab said, like that was right in the beginning of like the KHL's kind of push. It was almost as if they were trying to become the USFL across the ocean, and they were like really hell bent on being a thorn in the NHL side and being an attractive option for NHL players. The lockout was still pretty fresh in everyone's mind, and it kind of just wasn't working out. And then this happened, and it did change sort of the entire landscape of both leagues. And a day, like I said, I mean, I could still picture I don't remember what I was wearing, but I could still I know exactly, like looking at my friend when him and I both saw the news kind of come across at the same time, being like, I know what he was wearing and what class we were in. It was a sports media class. We were about to watch a 30 for 30. And we were just like, whoa, this is crazy.
I could just picture myself like staring at the screen, kind of like trying to take in everything. And like you said, media landscape was very fragmented back then, and we were getting little bits and pieces of information kind of trickling in. And then once everything settled and you got to take a look back at everything, it was just unbelievable. And like I said, it reverberates today. These players are ones who have had people have long histories with them, memories of them. And so while we are going to focus today on Josef Vašíček and his one season with the Islanders, spoiler alert, we're all fans. So we're going to be talking very highly about him and remembering his time with the Islanders very fondly. We do this in tribute to him and all of those lost in the Lokomotiv tragedy, and obviously all of their friends and family. And it's never too late to send condolences for this kind of stuff, because it's a lot. Just the loss of life, no matter what these guys did, is just shocking. You're never going to get over it. But we're here to pay tribute to them, and specifically to Josef Vašíček. So, Sab, I will go back to you. Whereabouts do you think the first time you came to notice the big center from the former Czechoslovakia? When did he first get on your radar as a hockey fan?
Prior to his Islanders season, would have probably been Carolina's Cup run. He did have a great playoff.
Yes,
he did stand out, like like the big Joe, like they called him.
yes,
he did stand out there. But he didn't. But he stood out for his size, not for being slow. He still had decent speed for a big guy, and always found his way near the puck and did some great digging out. Like he did stand out in that season, and it was like that's why down the road it was quite a pleasant surprise out of all the other names that were signed on that offseason by the Islanders. To me, Vašíček was the one that I really wanted to pay attention to at the time. But yeah, the Cup run was where he pretty much made a name for himself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that Carolina Cup run in a few minutes, but we keep talking about his size. 6'5", 214 was Josef Vašíček's playing size. He was a large man, and a center. He was drafted in the 4th round of the 1998 NHL draft, the first draft the Hurricanes had as the Hurricanes and not the Hartford Whalers, out of what was then Czechoslovakia and is now Slovakia. He came up the first time in 2000 and actually was part of the Hurricanes Cup run in 2002, which I want to talk about a lot in a second. But Mike, was this around the time that you first started to notice Vašíček too? Was it the 06 Cup run, or maybe it was the 2002 Cup run that eventually was unsuccessful for the Hurricanes, and then they would come back a few years later and win it? But which of those years do you think you started to take notice of Joe Vašíček?
Yeah, I remember him from that 02 season. The Islanders, like they weren't directly competing with the Hurricanes, but the Hurricanes, I think, ended up finishing 3rd in the conference, and I think the Islanders were playing the Flyers the last game of that 01-02 season, and there was like a way that if they lost, like they would end up playing the Hurricanes, and that's what everyone kind of wanted, but they ended up winning the game and getting the Leafs. Something like that happened. But I remember him from that season, and I remember him because A, of his size, like you guys saying, and because like a few other players, especially in that era, you don't hear it as much anymore. But there's just a certain group of players, like you always have. There's certain players that are two-name players, right? Like Sean Bates is a two. You always say Sean Bates, right? You never just say Bates. It's Sean Bates, and there just are players like that. And just like there in that era, there's a group of players who were always got the adjective big in front of their two names. So it was always Big Joe Vašíček or Big Andy Sutton was like the poster child for it. It was like, there's Big Andy Sutton, lining up
Chris Gratton is always my go-to.
Yeah. And it's just such a funny thing because you never would hear, and here comes small Jason Blake coming down the wing. So there was this just group of players that were known as the bigs, and they got called Big name, and so he was Big Joe Vašíček, and he was big, and he wore a funky number. He had a funky, very fun to say name. He wore that number 63, which I actually wore in soccer for travel soccer for a couple of years, just kind of randomly, and so I remember that being kind of like, oh, this is my guy. He's wearing number 63 for the Big Joe is wearing number 63 for the Hurricanes, and I'm wearing it for the Rockville Center Stingers or something. So I mean, and that team, as much as we dislike the Hurricanes these days, that team, that 01-02 team was pretty likable. Artur Zerbe, of course, with the way he looked in goal. They had some real characters like Bates Pataglia, David Tanabe, like those kind of guys who just it was a mishmash. And at that point, the Hurricanes were an underdog. Like it's almost as if they're still trying to apply this underdog, small market mentality team to where they are now, which it doesn't really work anymore, right?
No.
Like,
but Mike, you forget the biggest part. They eliminated the Leafs, fella.
Yeah, exactly. They sure did.
That's absolutely true. But I'm glad you mentioned this though, because I wanted to bring this up, and this is an era I think that's been a little bit lost nowadays, because again, the Hurricanes are a very different team. They're led by one of the world's smartest boys, as we all know, blogger turned general manager Eric Tulsky, the second smartest boy in the NHL behind Kyle Dubas, of course. And they're the team that the sexy pick, everybody loves to pick them to win the cup this year. Every year, basically. But this was a very different Carolina team. They had only moved from Hartford a couple of years earlier, and there was still a lot of Whalers jokes, Brass Bonanza, people were playing and all that kind of stuff. They went from having one of the most iconic logos in sports and being sort of everybody's little brother team to moving to a completely new market. Like, we had gotten used to Florida and Texas and California and even Arizona as hockey markets. North Carolina was a whole new kettle of fish. Like, there was a brand new thing, and their new logo looked like something you might see in a hardware store. It was a very weird team. They played for 2 years at a temporary site in Greensboro before their arena was even completed. So this was a really odd curiosity of a team. And then 2002 happens, and they make the playoffs, kind of surprising, and run through a bunch of teams, and again get to the conference finals against the Leafs, who, in case you haven't heard, haven't been to the Cup finals since 1967. And and of course, the Leafs had been this rough and tumble team. They had beaten the hell out of the Islanders in that first round, and then survived, I think, the Flyers in the next round, or was it the Devils? I'm not even sure. Anyway, I will never forget Steve Levy's words when the Hurricanes won that series. He said, "It's strange but true. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to the Stanley Cup final." Because it was like, how did this even happen? Who let this happen? But they lost in 5 games to the Red Wings that year. They actually won the first game. Ron Francis was on that team. He was like 70 years old. He scores in overtime in game 1. Oh my God, the Hurricanes have a lead. And then the Red Wings woke up and just annihilated them for the next 4 games. But that really, like Sab said, put this team on the map.
5:15 left. First period, no score. Vašíček scores! Vašíček scores! A giveaway again, and Vašíček jumped on it and beat Hasek cleanly. 1-0 Carolina.
And then after a couple of more playoff free years, it's 2006. They go to the Cup final again after the lockout, and they win it, which was kind of crazy, and they haven't really been back since. But yeah, Vašíček was a big player for them, and in fact, most of his best numbers come with Carolina. He played 341 games for them, 57 goals, 135 points. He was traded after that Cup win to Nashville for Scott Walker, who was a goon. I don't know why this trade was made. I guess you have to ask Jim Rutherford. But then he went back to Carolina and played the 2006-2007 season there. Since this is not Weird Predators, we don't need to talk about his 38 games in Nashville. But he is most notably, remembered as a Carolina Hurricane of this vintage. Although he didn't play during the Cup winning run. He must have been hurt because he only played 8 games and had 0 points. But no, a notable player for a very bizarre team. He eventually was let go by the Hurricanes after the 2007 season. They let him walk as a free agent, and he signs with the Islanders August 15th of 2007. And this was a notable signing. I remember being like, wow, he's a pretty good player. And actually, Garth Snow talked about his size and his versatility. And that's the thing that I always get to with Joe Vašíček. He's a very versatile player. He played center, but he could kill penalties. He could score. We'll talk about his scoring in a few minutes. But yeah, so Sab, he comes to the Islanders after some very successful seasons with the Hurricanes. And I mean, what was your initial thought? Like,
I think I had a bit of a Ryan Smith trade type of good job, Garth type of feel, because it was later. Like, you're right, because the Islanders have already had their press conference with Aaron, Comrie, Fedotenko. They basically kind of just made a big shuffle, but they figured it was a splash. They surprised Guerin with the C on the jersey. I don't know where that came from. That could be another freaking episode right there. And the thing is okay, there's the splash, but then they quietly signed Vašíček shortly after, and I was obviously familiar with the talent, familiar with the name. You looked at the stats though, and you touched on the Cup run. I think if I saw correctly on one of the videos, he pretty much put on a jersey and some skates and skated around with the Cup. I believe injuries were the major factor in 3 seasons, and that would probably explain why there was no extension or anything with Carolina. So it was kind of like one of those quiet, hey, if he comes out and has a full season, which we will go over, he does, then it's a bit of a steal. Unfortunately, it didn't go further from that, and we can go over that later too. But I thought at the time, like, Garth, this is a great signing. You have, you have size. You just have an injury concern, but you're not going to have a concern. Like, there was nothing about him being, a problem in the dressing room. Actually, it was quite opposite. He was known
I was going to say
big, gentle giant, and you watched his highlights. You watched his appearances. He was great with the fans. He was great with the media. They renamed an award for him down the road, I think, in Carolina because of his relationship with the media. And when you see the clips of him play, he had a great attitude towards it. Some guys look like very pensive out there. Some guys look serious. Some guys look like they're concentrating. Some guys look like they're 12 years old playing the game that they love. And you also have some guys who have that dejected look, like, why the hell did I sign in Toronto? But that's another story. So the thing is I said, you have a guy who wants to be there, and he'll give you his all. Let's just hope he has a full, healthy season, and he does.
Yeah, no, he had a great season. Mike, you remember the Bill Guerin press conference very well. We talk about it. Was that the one at the restaurant? No, that was
at the Westbury like Hilton or something.
Yeah. Right.
And then they took a picture on like that little bridge.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. Fedotenko, all those guys.
Yeah, and they were wearing their jerseys, like the older the Navy jerseys, like the Navy Classic jersey. But that year they switched. Like a couple weeks later, they switched to the
RBK,
the Reeboks.
Yeah, the RBK. Yeah, right.
Yeah, the RBK Edge jersey. So, it was the only time you got to see those guys in those jerseys, really. But yeah, I remember that, and like Sab, I remember being like, "Whoa!" But that came out of nowhere, and it was really tidy piece of business from Garth for sure. And thinking like this is the exact kind of move that the Islanders should be going for, because he's cheap one year deal. Obviously a guy who can contribute if he's healthy. He's big. He's a center. He can kill penalties. He's got a good shot. He's big Joe. He's like he's kind of like just one of those guys who's when around the NHL, like everyone knows who Josef Vašíček is because he's this big guy who wears number 63. He's got a fun to say name, and now he's on the Islanders, and all of a sudden the 07-08 team was big. Like they were getting big all of a sudden, and they had lost so much talent from and so many goals from the season before with Blake and Smith and even like Tom Poti, Victor Kozlov. There was so much turnover.
Don't forget our captain.
Yeah, the captain too. Yeah, right. So like it's Yashin's gone. Like it's just all these kind of rotating door, and then all of a sudden you look at the Islanders and you're like, holy crap, like they just outside of Comrie, like they just got big. Think about it, right? I mean, Trent Hunter is a pretty big boy. Vašíček obviously was Big Joe Vašíček. They brought in Tim Jackman was there, Brendan Witt, and of course Big Andy Sutton. So they had two of the bigs on the team. They became like a big kind of team overnight. Matthew Spiller, if you remember him, he was a big guy. Darryl Bootland. I think Darryl Bootland, because I don't know if it was one of Sav's videos or another one of the great Islanders archive accounts, but I was watching a couple of weeks ago. I was watching the season, the home opener for this year, when Mike Comrie was we were chanting MVP for Mike Comrie because he burst out of the gates on time. But Darryl Bootland was in the starting lineup, or not the starting lineup, but he was in the lineup out of camp. So Darryl Bootland was there, and just seeing these guys get honestly. If you watch that video and they do the player introductions, the guys who get the biggest pop from the crowd, sure you get Rick gets one and Bill Guerin gets one as the new captain. You got guys like Shatan and Hunter, etc. But Big Joe, like he got quite the pop too from the crowd. People were excited about him as well. So. I don't know, like it just felt like a good move, and it was like this ended up being a good move for the Islanders. That just kind of it was a one year thing, but if you look at the numbers and the role he played and the team, I mean, he finished. Nobody on this team eclipsed 50 points, which is really tells you everything you need to know. But Big Joe is right there, right? Comrie, Guerin, Hunter, Shatan, and then there's Vašíček.
And now, a word from our sponsors. VintageIceHockey.com. Over 100 classic hockey logos on t-shirts, jerseys, hats, mugs, and more. Long Island Ducks, Albany Riverettes, Danbury Trashers, Kentucky Thoroughblades, and so many more. Plus a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch with our portion of the sales going directly to the Center for Dementia Research. These incredible items cannot be found in stores, so shop VintageIceHockey.com today. Relax, sit back, and enjoy wine from The Pinot Project. Rosé, Pinot Grigio, or a Pinot Noir that was named a Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. These wines are delicious, affordable, and available at area wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com, and please, drink responsibly. We should say that, of course, we're talking about the 07-08 season, which, of course, follows the incredible 2006-2007 season, which Mike and I have talked about on this show and on Anxiety many, many times. That is the Wade Dublowitz, Ryan Smith, insane playoff run season. This season would end up being a little bit different. But you're right. Like, we all kind of had this notion that, okay, they lost Smith, they bought out Yashin, they lost Blake. They have replaced them with guys who, if they get the same kind of production, should be pretty good. They've tasted the playoffs. Ted Nolan is still the coach. We still like Ted Nolan. And players like Vašíček would have played a big role. And Garth Snow at the time said, Josef is an extremely talented center who's 6'4", strong in his own zone, been in winning situations, and at just 26, entering his prime. That's the other thing too. Vašíček was only 26 at the time that they brought him in, so this really had the potential to be an enormously huge signing for the Islanders, and he would be really good this 1 year, but unfortunately, it only lasted the 1 year. That 1 year for the team wouldn't be that great. There's a reason that we haven't talked about this season that much, really outside of Mike Comrie. This is about, and Chris Simon, this is really the only time we really talked about this season. They would finish 35-38-9 for 79 points. Ted Nolan would get fired at the end of the season. It was a very kind of big letdown from the previous season, which is unfortunate. But Vašíček had 16 goals, 19 assists, 35 points. Like Mike said, that was fourth best on the team behind Comrie, who had 49. Fifth best on the team. Imagine a guy leading a team scoring at 49 points. 49 points. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. That's the kind of season it was. Fedotenko was right behind Vašíček at 33 points. So not a great season. Sab, when you think of this season of Islanders hockey, outside of Vašíček, maybe he's the guy you think of, but is there a particular thing that you think about, or a particular feeling you have when you think about this season, the follow-up to what by any objective measure an insane season the year before, just ended up being like a big old long kind of like wet noodle of a season that eventually came to an end, although there were some good performances in there. But what do you think about when you think about the 07-08?
Well, the season itself, to me personally, it was a lot more memorable. It was a lot more special because not even a few weeks after the Vašíček signing, the Islanders go and announce that, we're going to bring back your Hall of Fame coach and let him coach number 1500.
Right.
That's right.
And that just floored everybody.
Right.
And that was obviously a major highlight because it wasn't just a ceremonial puck drop at a meaningless game against the Penguins. No, he's actually going to be on the bench and he'll actually be the head coach. On paper, of course, we all know it was great. So you had that memorable moment. And let's not forget, they actually had a decent start to that season.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Comrie for MVP. He started off pretty well. Guerin was contributing, I think, a little bit more than people thought. He had an awesome game. The game before the 1500, I believe it was a 4-0 win against Tampa. So they were having a good start. And then I'm not sure if it was injuries or just stale play. Come February or March, they had a couple long losing streaks, and it kind of got them out of contention. And having said all this, you can say that one of the best on-ice highlights was scoring from our own red line against the Leafs. Don't forget about that, guys. That was incredible.
Yes. I was at that game.
One of the best videos I have.
Yes.
They did start. They started the season well. Like I know that they kind of got out of the gates pretty well. I think they won their first 2 games. Comrie was he was unplayably good in those games, and there was some there were just good feelings around the team because when they did announce that, or when they played that Arbour game, I was like, there's no way this is the exact game the Islanders lose. They play well in that game and win. And then what ended up happening was they kind of just ran Rick into the ground. And then he went to the All-Star game and got hurt at the All-Star game. Right. And that derailed the season. And if you remember, this is a team full of tradable assets. Like the Islanders had, I think, 10 or 11 guys who, when it got close to the trade deadline, the vultures were circling, right? Like Shatan was a unrestricted free agent. Comrie was on a 1-year deal at the time. Fedotenko, Vašíček, Chris Simon was unrestricted. There was a couple other guys. Like there were a bunch of guys. Trent Hunter his name was out there, I remember too. And the Islanders were sort of teetering on like the line, but if you look at that group of players, especially back then, like Shatan would have kind of Shertan and Comrie and Hunter, Fedotenko and Vašíček, like those 5 guys right there would have got you quite a haul from at a trade deadline. And what the Islanders ended up doing, trades for that season, if you want to know, I have them here. Pretty unremarkable stuff from our guy Garth. I remember being pretty mad about how he handled this trade deadline. He traded Marc-Andre Bergeron and Chris Simon, I believe, in separate deals. Chris Simon went to Minnesota. Bergeron went to the Ducks, I think. And then he traded for the aforementioned guy who scored against the Leafs. That's Rob Davison. And that was it.
I'm not putting the Rob Davison clip in here, by the way, but only because I desperately want to do a Rob Davison episode.
Yeah, we'll get
to find the person to do it. Yeah,
yeah. And but in a weird, I'm looking at the trade deadline page and kind of just bringing it back to where we started the show. But at the trade deadline this year, the Panthers and Avalanche made a trade where the Panthers traded for Carlos Scratchtins for Ruslan Saleh, which is, kind of just,
oh wow,
like gives you a shiver to think about.
Right.
But and I mean, this was just as we said, like the Islanders had a chance to kind of pick a direction at the deadline, and here and Snow, as he did a couple times in his career as a GM, just did nothing. And I think it actually, looking back on it, really hurt the team. Just because they were eventually going to go with that philosophy just a few months later.
To his defense, at the time, they were still above 500.
Yeah, they were right there.
Come off an actual 6-game winning streak.
Wow.
And you look at the character players that he had, they probably had that feeling in the room, like, we can do this.
Right.
And then
especially after what happened. We'll just win the last 4 games again.
But you also mentioned DiPietro getting hurt at the All-Star game. They had that 6-game winning streak, but also after like January 21st, he just lost like basically every other game. Like he just lost until the whole thing fell apart.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, we still have that that Rob Davison goal, and so the Islanders traded for Davison on trade deadline day, and they played the Penguins that night, and Davison showed up in the middle of the second period because they were like desperate to get a body in. Right. I can't remember why, but he showed up in the middle of that game, and I remember I was at that game and being like, oh, there he is. And I think they might have announced it, like, please welcome like Rob Davison to the Islanders.
That's really funny. We need to save this for the eventual Rob Davison episode. We'll get yes. But the point is that this season was a bit of a mess. And like I said, they like we've been saying, they started out pretty good. We're hanging around. Rick gets hurt at the All-Star game, the infamous, I think I fucked up my hip situation. And then that was basically the end of it. But that being said, there were highlights. Rob Davison obviously being one. And Sab, you talked about it before. The Al Arbour game, in which Al Arbour was the Islanders coach. This was on November 3rd, 2007, against the Penguins. Sidney Crosby, obviously. Mike, I'm with you. I went into this game totally thinking this is going to be cool to see Al Arbour, and also absolutely terrible when they lose. And not only did they not lose, they won in exciting fashion. A very Islanders-like game. They were down 2-0. They came back to win 4-2. And Joe Vašíček had a great game. I believe he had a goal and an assist in this game. They had a whole ceremony afterwards. They changed the banner from $14.99 to $1,500 for Al Arbour. There was a ton of alumni there. Bobby Nystrom, Pat LaFontaine, Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Clark Gillies, the whole crew came out. Eric Cairns, too. He wasn't coached by Al Arbour, but he was there. So whatever, who cares? And it was a great moment.
This organization has had so many memorable postseason moments and won so many memorable regular season games. But the entire package of Al Arbour's 1,500th Islanders game coached has also produced memories that will last a long, long time. Ted Nolan understands every bit of it. It's quite a legacy Al left. I think the whole Islander organization needs to be commended tonight because you can't put it together any better than they did.
No, they did it right. They did it absolutely right as it goes up to the rafters after the group picture. They pulled it off without a hitch, without it becoming a circus-like atmosphere. It was the game first, and let's not look past that. I mean, how about the comeback by the New York Islanders, down 2-0 to a very good Pittsburgh Penguin team? I think he's equally as proud. I guarantee he'll say I'm equally as proud about tonight's victory as I am my 1500th game here.
Well, his one-day contract is up, which makes him a free agent.
Sign him. A-Rod wants $350 million. Sign him to that money. This guy has such presence about him.
What's up? You have great memories of this particular game, and I'm glad we get to speak about it here. You know, this is you wouldn't think that Weird Islanders, the podcast, is the place to talk about somebody like Al Arbour, but of course we had a whole episode of Ken Morrow last season for the same thing, and you know, this kind of fits right in. But this was a great game, and it's actually on my 10 greatest Islanders game DVD set. Not just the Al Arbour thing, but just the fact that they came back and beat the Penguins was just awesome. I mean, this is probably one of the best Islanders games of the last 30 years, 25 years, something like that. And it's been a little bit lost now, but it was awesome.
I definitely agree. And I was fortunate enough. I went down for this one. I am quite away, but I did get to be at that game and the Thursday night previous. And I think it encompassed, like you said, not only a thrilling game on the ice. You have your retrospective feel-good moments of following this team through the dynasty while the game's going on. It's not just a clip up on the video board. You're actually feeling it throughout the entire game. You're trying to win one more for Al, and it's incredible. And they rallied around it. When it comes to Vašíček, this is where you could say it's so Islanders. About 10 seconds before he sets up the tying goal, he's flat on his ass because he freaking toe picks in the neutral zone. And then, of course, thanks to a turnover, they feed him up front. He stops. Defenders go to him. He finds Miro. Miro scores, tie game. And then you could just feel everything, basically about to, culminate to a victory. And then Miro scores on a quick rebound. How he got that was awesome.
Feeding it back for Christensen. He couldn't hold on. Sutton looks for Vašíček breaking ahead. Josef Vašíček charges to the net, feeds Shatan. He shoots, he scores! Tie game, 2-2.
Making another memory for that guy right there. Andy Sutton starts a gorgeous breakout play as he recognizes that the Penguins are all looking at him and nobody else. Vašíček gets it. Watch both Penguins look at him. Nobody takes the guy coming in weak side as Miro Shatan scores. Listen to the bench for this one.
Go, Joe, go! Yeah! Woo!
I was actually fortunate to be lower bowl. I was, the excitement, like you could feel it. It's just like those the cheesy people in the media say. It was palpable. You could feel it. It was incredible. And Al was not going to do this unless the alumni were involved. He wanted to make it a full, alumni event. He wanted everybody recognized, and that worked out, amazing. You had Scotty Bowman there. You had Bill Torrey there. It was excellent, and they had mad respect for Al. Like you mentioned a whole bunch of players that have never been involved. They don't have Al Arbour on the tree anywhere, but you recognize greatness, and they stopped during practice to stick tap and point out to him while he's up there shooting the breeze with Garth and Steve Webb and such. Like it was just for the organization. And for all Islander fans, the entire event was incredible. And you had a couple of weird moments in the game too. You had Pittsburgh scoring and the play going on for 2-3 minutes. I actually had a vantage point. I'm like, shit, I think that puck hit the back bar. I think they're going to call this. I think they're going to call this in like eventually, and eventually they do. And then you have, Sid scratching Rick in the eyelash. I don't know how he sold it. He sold it very well. And so you got Sidney Crosby out of the game. It actually reminded me of when Mario spilt and had to bail out of Game 1 in '93 against the Islanders. It's like, oh my God, the superstar's gone. What are we going to do? Oh, we're going to win is what we're going to do. So yeah, it had so many great feels, and you had great action on the ice and an amazing ceremony. The Islanders did it perfectly. Nobody left. Everybody said, hey, well, they're going to do something. Yeah, you're damn right. They're going to do something. And you had the banner ceremony, you had the alumni there, the players there. It was just incredible. And they had I was lucky enough to be at a little post game event, and I didn't get to meet Big Joe. I got to meet Chris Simon, and R.I.P. The guy was misunderstood. He was very personable. He was great with the kids. He was great with everybody else. And I'm caught up with a bunch of other alumni. We can talk about that another time. But the Islanders basically, for I believe it was an early November game, had the entire league paying attention to them for the right reasons, because of course we knew before that we were getting attention for for other reasons.
Right.
So that was A+, and I'll just wrap by saying that was probably the best Islander game I've ever been live. So that was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been at the '93 game with Turgeon and Hunter, and we can have another pod about that sometime.
Oh, we might have to get you on the horn again. Yeah.
Yes. For when we start Highlanders villains. The thing I remember most about that, and you touched on it, is I didn't go to that game. I watched it in my basement at my parents' house with my buddy, because we couldn't. It was one of the only games you couldn't get the $6 tickets on a cold November night early in the season. I don't know who the Islanders played on either side of that game, but I'm sure we went to both those games and spent less than $3 on tickets or something combined. But we couldn't afford tickets to that one, and it felt good. And it also, I just remember watching this and being like, that's the Islanders doing this. They don't do stuff like this. They'd have little ceremonies here and there, one or two a year, usually honoring the dynasty team in some respect. But it was very, aughts Islanders, right? They'd ride around on a pickup truck, wave to the crowd, and Sparky would come down from the ceiling, and then the game would start. And yeah, this one just felt like it had a cultural impact in not just with the Islanders, but kind of around the league, and everyone loved it. It was such a nice touch, such a nice thing to do. The game was great. If you want to watch it, of course, you can go to the great YouTube channel that belongs to our man Sab here, and you can watch the entire game and the ceremony, and you can see what what we're talking about. That it was really just a rockin' night, and one that the Islanders very rarely hit home runs back then in these kind of ways. But this was one. And I just remember thinking wow, man, that was really cool. It was just really, really cool. So
yeah.
And if I may add real quick before Dan, I throw it to you, there's two soft moments when you go see the videos. When they win, Chris Simon gives Al a hug. That's just awesome. And Mr. Vašíček is the one who gives them the game puck.
That's right.
Of course, I'll always remember that.
That's right. I was going to say he brought him the puck. And I always remember Ted Nolan's reaction too, because I'm pretty sure he was the one who was like, it's bothering me that it's a $14.99. Yeah. He got him the whole thing started.
Was Ted the kind of the driving force behind that?
Ted was the original one who, if you recall back in those days, you had the hallway at the Coliseum, and you had those, statistics and, amount of trophies won, total goals, all the career stats and the leaders. And it had $14.99 for games coached for Al. And he would see that either, game time, practice, whatever. And it kind of bothered him. So I guess he threw the idea and with Charles and Garth, and they decided to go ahead with this. And he touches on it in his book. And for a career like Ted Nolan's, to have a chapter dedicated to his time with the Islanders and this event and everything, and all of it being positive was quite pleasantly surprising to me, considering that Ted has had a rough patch with some franchise, like with the Sabres and a few other things. He did have a little incident with Milbury. He covers that in the book. I'll let you guys go and check that out. But yeah, it was his idea. It went off amazingly, as we all know. And he had a nice little few conversations about coaching, about being involved with the players and everything with Al, and he touches that in the book, and I highly recommend people check that out.
I can as well, because I read that book for my Islanders book club series. Oh, also with the Patreon. So it's one of the most readable books I've ever done for the series. So definitely check that out. I second that recommendation very highly. But yeah, this was a great game. I remember watching it. I remember being excited by everybody being excited that this was happening, like Mike said, and like you guys have been saying. The Islanders didn't do this kind of stuff back then. They were still very much a low rent organization that, was one missed rent payment from, maybe not existing anymore. So this was kind of a huge deal to bring those guys back. I mean, we see those guys all the time. I mean, you can't go to an Islanders game without seeing Bob Nystrom, right? But like Sab said, this was different. This was Al coaching on the bench, and the fact that they won made it enormous.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. This Monday night, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Come celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Monday Night Raw, November 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Be there for the moment everyone will be talking about.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift. Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit REI.com.
So that was definitely probably the biggest highlight of the season, but there were a few others. Again, Rob Davison being one. But I found another one. So that was an early season game, but there was a late season game against the Atlanta Thrashers, which is maybe the most 2011 sentence you could possibly utter. An Islanders game against the Atlanta Thrashers. And Vašíček had 2 points in this game, including another assist on a game-winning goal. This time, Trent Hunter's overtime winner.
Interesting to watch the rest of this game, because so far so good, I think. Yeah, and you'll see as Vašíček all alone in front makes it 2-0.
What'd I tell you? At the end.
Vašíček draws with Christensen, and Ken Klee loses it to Vašíček. Centers, Hunter shoots, he scores! And the Islanders have won it in overtime. An exasperating win for the Islanders here in Atlanta.
This game, I think they won this game 5-4. That's completely bonkers. I have no recollection of this game whatsoever. I think by this point I was probably checked out on this season. But watching it again, watching them play the Atlanta Thrashers in their powder blue, Ilya Kovalchuk is on the team. Like it was a wild scene. It really took me back. And for a moment I was like, holy crap, this is really something. Sab, is this? I think this is on your channel, isn't it, or is it not?
I think this was one of the few games that the NHL YouTube channel still has. And due to that, I don't just reproduce it, but I do remember a bit of that game. And yeah, they were in that, slow funk. I think this was around trade deadline time or just after the trade deadline. And I guess it probably was the last big goal Trent Hunter ever scored. from what I recall.
Probably.
I do great Sally and everything, but I think we blew like a 3-goal lead too. I think in that one.
Yes, they were up 3-0, and then they lost. It might have been 4-0, but yeah. I just was like, wow, I wish I remembered this game because this seemed pretty awesome. 5-4 game against the Thrashers is definitely a wild one. I should also mention, by the way, we can't call him a weird Islander because he played too many games for them before this, but this was the one season return of Brian Berard, a personal favorite of mine. Came back, signed with them. He talks about this in his book as well, coming back and playing for the Islanders again after the eye injury and bouncing around. He had played for the Rangers and Columbus before this, but came back. I was super excited. Played 54 games for them, 5 goals, 17 assists, 22 points. Again, it was only lasted one season, the reunion, but I remember being, again, super hype. I meant to mention this before when we were talking about kind of going into the season being hyped for it, and then unfortunately it didn't work out. But this was a team, as I look, and again, they missed the playoffs by a bunch. Nolan was fired at the end of the season. They were bringing in Scott Gordon and then start the rebuild, as Mike mentioned before. As unsuccessful as this team was on the ice, looking down the roster of these players, Comrie, even Guerin, Hunter, Shatan, one of my personal favorites in this era, Vašíček, obviously, Fedotenko, Richard Park was on this team, Mike Sillinger, again, Berard, Radek Martinek was on this team as well. Davison, Jack Hillen, who I came to like. This was a very, very likable, enjoyable team. Chris Simon, Franz Nielsen got playing time on this team very briefly. This was a very enjoyable team of guys that I am very kind of like warm towards, despite the fact that they were not that great. And they ended up, kind of
I think it was more about ups and downs in this one. And like, if you look at, like, we had the elephant in the room, which was Chris Simon's second suspension.
Yes.
We had that incident. But then once, our playoff hopes dimmed, Kyle Poso scores his first goal against Marty Brodeur. So, they had some highs and lows. It was like, you can't say it was a boring season. It was definitely entertaining. And another thing too is when you pull yourself away, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Dan. I think Ted and Garth just didn't see working together after this season, because if you look at contract situations with Guerin at 2 years, but then Comrie, Fedotenko, Vašíček, all 1-year deals, they knew that there was this OHL superstar going to be available soon.
Yeah, that's probably
true. And it could have been the old, Ted, I'm going to give you the lunch pail, hardworking, with some name recognition, so Charles can say, okay, we can sell tickets with these guys. But I'm going to give you that lunch pail veteran group that you want. And if it doesn't work, we're going to do a rebuild. We're going to go young. We'll keep Bill. We'll bring in a future head coach somehow with Doug Waite. But it'll be, a younger group. And then, we don't say teams tank anymore, but they knew what was coming down the pipe in 2000. Oh, yeah.
They definitely did.
For sure. Yeah. This was a team this team really wasn't set up to fail, but it wasn't really set up to succeed either. It was kind of set up to just exist, and it was the third of the 3 mercenary years. I mean, I guess you could consider the next one a little bit of a mercenary year too, when you look at the roster that ends up coming in 08-09, and we talk a lot about the goaltending tandem of Jan Denis and Joey McDonald, and then you get Wade, and it was just like this, that Tomas Polk comes in, and it's just like that was a team that was pretty much designed to fail. This one was designed I think Sab is kind of right. Like, this was a, hey, you wanna I'll make it competent. I mean, even Snow kind of kept plugging holes all summer, as we said, right? Vašíček comes in mid-August. I think Andy Sutton was just a couple days before that. He came in late. He makes the Berard move, which ends up working, paying immediate dividends. I think he scored right away, like on his first shift back with the team. So it wasn't a hands in the air kind of situation, but it was certainly not a team that was going to to go anywhere. It was just there to exist. And there have been so many seasons like this in Islanders history where we joke about how the Islanders kind of play in their own league, right? They're not in the NHL. We're desperate for them to just join the NHL every season. And this was one of them. It was like they were kind of their own sideshow, and sideshow things happened, whether it was the Davison thing. Right. Obviously the Al Arbour thing wasn't a sideshow. It was really nice, but it was a season of moments. Rick at the All-Star game, the Simon stomp, as we were talking about. There was just a lot of stuff that kind of happened while the season was going on, and the Islanders were on a roller coaster throughout, and there were some, as we said, nice moments too, like Oposo makes his debut, and then Jack Hillen makes that 2-game stint. He chose the Islanders. John Sim, by the way, played 2 games this season. If you remember, he got hurt. They signed him, and then he got hurt like right away. So he only played 2 games in 07-08, but it was, and as I was saying, it was kind of like just the end of the road for a lot of the guys, not just with the Islanders, but just their career. Whether it was Sillinger was breaking down, Sean Bates was pretty much cooked at this point. I couldn't believe he was still on the team. Right. He would just like show up, and they'd be like, "Hey, Bates, you want to play today?" And then, yeah, sure, I'll play.
He was a very part-time player.
It was kind of like the end of the road for guys like Witt. This was the season he got hit by the car, or was it the next?
I thought it was the first season, but it might have been this season. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So like it was. I think if you lined up all these guys in a room and you asked them if they remembered who each other were, I don't know how many of them would. Like be like, oh wait, if you asked like Mike Sillinger, do you remember playing with Sean Bergenheim? No. Yeah. But it's just, that was it was a strange, enjoyable, maybe it's not the right word, but interesting season. Joe Vašíček was kind of one of the only stable parts of it. You kind of just knew what to expect from him. He was quite the contributor, and I mean, it's pretty surprising that his career doesn't continue in the NHL after this year. When you look at the numbers, he finishes with 35 points and he plays 81 games. He's on a bad team is on the plus side of the ledger, +1. I mean, it's one of those things where you just wonder why he didn't end up going anywhere else. But
I was curious about that, and I looked into it a little bit, and other than the switch from like the Islanders looking to change modes, as it were, with the expiring contract, and considering the fact that he hadn't played a full season since 2004, so you would figure he'd be like primed to say, "Hey, let's keep going." I played 81 games. I'm the top 5 in scoring. I feel good. I like it here. They like me. Team was going in one direction. However, he had a previous relationship with our former captain, Mr. Yashin. And that's where the conversations began to get him to go back to play near his hometown and go play in the KHL.
Yeah, I was going to say, my assumption was that he wanted to go play someplace closer to Slovakia, and this KHL would have been the perfect setup for that. But Yashin did play for Lokomotiv in their first season, and I think he was, a coach or some kind of maybe front office member at this point, and brought Vašíček in after this season was over. Like Mike said, played 81 games for the Islanders, 16 goals, 19 assists, 35 points. Really, really good season. Our friend Isles Den has a video of a bunch of highlights of Vašíček that season, and he just makes it look so easy. Like, he's just so big, but he scores these goals, and he makes it look very, very easy. And it's a very quick video that will explain, if you're too young to have watched this, exactly why so many people were such fans of this guy. He was a big dude with soft hands.
Yeah, I live here in Canada, and of course the Canadian media, they always do the comparables, right? You always, somebody who's 15 years old is going to be, compared to a professional player just to get in his head and screw him for life. Yeah. Anyways, if you
everybody's the next Chris Pronger.
Well, exactly. Did you guys find a lot of Viktor Kozlov in his game when you watched the highlights?
Yes. 100%.
Yes. The only difference is that while Vašíček made the things that he was doing look easy, you could tell he was trying hard. with Kozlov, it looked like he was just there. He was having a blast. Like he didn't know what the score was.
Right.
I'll never forget when Kozlov scores that shootout goal against the Devils, and he like does like the little fake, wipe the sweat off his brow celebration, and being like, dude, you have no idea. You think that this is the last game of the season, regardless. You got no idea what's at stake here.
Yeah.
But I think that is a good comparable there.
Definitely. But yeah, no, they're the kinds of guys, again, big guys. They might disappear for a while, but then they're gonna re-announce themselves with some kind of highlight reel play that would really turn your head and go, holy crap, that was unbelievable. But so he leaves, he goes back to the KHL and plays several years for Lokomotiv. In fact, he plays 166 games, 57 goals, 78 assists, 135 points from 2008 to 2011. Plays in 2 KHL All-Star games, and I believe the first year he played there, they went to a Gagarin Cup final. So I mean, again, wherever this guy goes, he is productive. He is versatile. He can kill penalties. He can, work power play. He can score. He can play on any line. And more importantly, he's just a teammate people love having around. And again, we talked about the unfortunate tragedy that he's left us too early. It is not hard to find memorials and articles about Vašíček at the time from people that covered him in Carolina, on Long Island, in the KHL, that just talk about what a great guy he was, what a kind of a kind heart he had, and like Sab said, was good with the media. When he got traded back to Carolina, he spoke with a reporter that talked about how he couldn't wait to come home. He loved, he didn't want to be traded. Now he's excited to be going back. Unfortunately, he got hurt for that cup run, but he was glad to win the cup with them. So just a great teammate and a good dude that you want to have on your team. And he showed that in a bunch of different places. And, unfortunately, he's one of these guys, and we talk about this all the time on this show. I could have swore this guy played in the league for 15 years. Like, he just felt like a guy who had always been around. He was always good. He was always the kind of guy that teams would want. But turns out his entire NHL career only lasted 7 seasons, 6 with the Hurricanes, 1 with the Islanders, and then that little piece basically with Nashville. But I was kind of surprised, because this to me is a player that still I think teams are looking for. A big guy who can score, play anywhere you want, and just, slot right into a lineup anywhere and any time. And I think he's, for many, many reasons, he's definitely still missed to this day, as is everybody that was unfortunately involved in the Lokomotiv crash. So, I mean, Sab, we've talked about this. Actually, I didn't even ask you the original question that I always ask people. What was it about Josef Vašíček that made him jump off that list for you? You actually said at the time when we first had you on that if we had you on again, you wanted to do Vašíček. So what was it about him? Were you just a huge fan from his time with the Islanders and before him?
It was just one of those things where you knew that he could have probably played several seasons if it wasn't for, the direction the team decided to go, because it wasn't his performance that
Right.
led to that. And there was obviously other factors, like we mentioned about going back home. You never complained about his effort, and he was always there. The big smile was something that that always got me. The moment at the 1500 game, it was just those little pieces and such that made you think, well, what if he did stay? What if the Owls would have snuck into the playoffs, and a few other guys other than Mike Comrie? I still don't understand that one. Extended during the season. I really like it. Can we get Arthur Staple on that one again? How the heck was Mike Comrie the only one to really extend at the trade deadline instead of actually bring us back a piece?
We just assumed it was because of Hillary Duff. That was we did a whole episode on Mike Comrie, and we ended up spending most of the time talking about Hillary Duff. So that was about
What could have been? And we see the Kelsey and Taylor stuff right now.
Yeah.
And what could have been, guys? What could have been? But yeah, I think it was a big guy, but he looked like a kid, just enjoying the game that he loved. And there's also a small. It's a very grainy clip. The Islanders were actually part of the community contest where they do a preseason game called Hockeyville up here. And it was in North Bay, Ontario. he had brought a couple of sick kids from Sault Ste. Marie because he played for the Greyhounds for a couple of years, and you see him spending time with them and stuff before the game.
How are you? How you doing? How's things, buddy?
Good.
I'm Josef Vašíček, and I'd like to introduce you to a couple of my friends here. Here's my left here.
Skylar Catling. Nathan Catling.
How's the trip up here, guys?
It was exciting. Yep.
All right, yeah, it's friends of mine from back in Sioux when I played in juniors almost 10 years ago.
Since then, Vašíček has brought Nathan and Skylar Catling to his NHL games on a regular basis. The kids suffer from Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. They live in Sault Ste. Marie and were driven 5 hours to get here for the Hockeyville game.
They're great guys, and they're full of life, and they love the hockey, so it's great to see.
He was just a great character guy, and we miss him. But the thing is we still have all the stuff to go and check out back from that time to see his performance on and off the ice.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Very well put. This is a perfect pick. We were both very excited all day. I've been waiting for this to talk about this because I just was such a huge fan. We said this last time. I'll say it again. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. If we ever get to meet in person at a game or wherever, I will tell you again, your YouTube channel is an absolutely invaluable resource.
I do anticipate making my way. I keep saying it. And I think one of the hesitations is we're starting to wait to find out what the heck's going on at UBS next year for this mysterious event, because that would obviously, if I could sandwich that with an actual home game for a few days, that would be the ultimate trip. I'd like to, maximize it.
Yeah. We hope you've had fun, Sab. It's always great having you on. Again, you can be as humble as you want, but that YouTube channel of yours is an absolute lifeline. And if you have not yet watched it, go there, devour everything. It's all neatly organized. It's all beautifully presented. And I personally, Mike, definitely, we thank you for doing everything you've done for this, because this is just the greatest gift you could have ever given us. I don't know if you know that, but we always appreciate it.
I'm glad you guys enjoy it. I hope the other all Islander fans enjoy it. I think it's Sab769 is the official account on YouTube. I can't afford to give it a fancy ass name or anything.
That's right. I'll put a link there for people.
There you go.
Yep. But thanks a lot,
guys. It's been a great time. Hopefully we'll do it again.
Yep.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
And I definitely have to add my thanks because anytime I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, I can't think of something to watch, I'll just go to your channel and I'll type in 2007 or something, and there I am 3 hours later, being like, wow, that was time well spent watching Chris Campoli just have the game of his life. So really, really, really appreciate it. So does my family.
Yeah,
all good.
Yep. Become a member at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety, just like Sab, for ad-free episodes, bonus content. Join us for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, YouTube Music, everywhere you get your podcast. Please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Knuckles by Bjorn Falk. Listen to more of his music on Bandcamp and on Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, any final thoughts on Josef Vašíček, versatile NHL player, one-year wonder for the Islanders, and a guy who, like Sab said before, is greatly missed?
No, I think that's it. Like, it was just I'm glad that we got to watch him on the team. The Big Joe Vašíček experience was on the island was quite enjoyable, and he just came, he did his job, and then he left in one season. And as far as weird Islanders go, like there wasn't too much weird stuff that happened because of him, and that makes him a little bit of an outlier for the show. He kind of just came, did his job, and left. So an absolute pleasure to have, and one of my favorites, and I'm just very happy that we got to have him on the team.
As am I, and I'm glad we got to talk about him. Thank you again, Sab, for coming on. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another great guest and another weird Islander. Until then, keep the Islanders weird. We will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.